Hey everyone, it's Heritage time again. If I quit my job, I could run a new Heritage video every week and still have more than enough ideas to keep the channel awash in content for the foreseeable future. Years at least. Anyway, I initially thought this auction was kind of boring, and in some ways it is, as everything I'm about to talk about is basically standard material for a Heritage signature auction. There's nothing too crazy, no multi-million-dollar books, but some of the stuff a little lower down the pecking order is, in its own way, crazy and fun. So this might be a long one. I'm not quite sure yet. I wrote out a little script, and we'll see how long it goes. So, all right, let's get started. So as you can see, we're starting with Action Comics number 1, CGC 3.0, Cream to Off-White. 3.0 sold for 1.6 million in 2021. The 6.0 Rocket copy sold for 3.18 million in 2022. And of course, we have the 8.5 selling for 6 million this year. Working with those numbers, I think, contrary to some other trends, between now and then, the $1.6 million result has actually held up pretty well. I'd extrapolate backwards from the $6 million sale to something in the $1.2 to $1.6 million range for this current book. We'll see what reality holds, of course, but regardless, the fact is that, I'm talking glibly about a 3.0 of any book selling for over $1 million is pretty crazy. It's all the evidence you need of the shift in the hobby over the past 15 years. All-Star Comics number 8, CGC 6.0, Cream to Off-White. If I had a time machine, there's other things I might do with it, but one of them would be to burst into the DC offices and yell, "Put Wonder Woman on the cover of All-Star number 8. I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably get arrested and be in like old-timey jail for a long time, but I wish they'd put her on the cover. Anyway, this is one of my favorite books, and a copy of this book, All-Star number 8, will likely feature in the soon-to-be-expanded Most Valuable Comic Books in the World list. And this one's a nice-looking 6.0, so if somebody wants to buy me a Christmas present, this one's fine. No worries. 16.5. So, we've got Batman number 11, CGC 9.4, Off-White to White. This copy sold for $36,000, $36,800 in 2003. The other 9.4 sold for $65,725 in 2016 and $46,306 in 2012. Is this one a $100,000 book? I think so. The current owner is taking offers of over $125,000 on Heritage's make an offer system, so they think so too. So we'll see how it goes. I love this cover, so there's that. It's got that going for it. Detective Comics number. Let me just send to that. Detective Comics number 27. Married, Trimmed, CGC Apparent 5.0 Extensive, Off-White to White. I initially thought this Franken book was from the Christine Farrell collection, since a lot of her keys were restored, and it was graded in the same period, like in September of this year. But it's not. And the mystery of her Detective Comics number 27 continues. We know she had one, we just don't know where it is. Is it going to come up for sale? We don't know. There we go. Detective Comics number 29, CGC 6.5, light tan to off-white pages. Okay, so here we go. I've spent a lot of time so far on the channel pointing out nice-looking mid-grade and lower-grade books. Here's me pointing out an ugly book with a nice grade for a 1939 DC. Light tan pages are not great to begin with, and the shadows on the cover of this book, multiple layers of shadows, like it was moved and then sat around for 5 years, and then moved again and sat around for 10. They're pretty ugly. But anyway, the most interesting thing about this listing is that it made me discover a hilarious, not if you're the seller and buyer, but whatever, flip kind of fail from a decade ago. The listing has the following quote: "The highest grade copy we've seen in 2 years, and the second highest graded we've seen since the Billy Wright copy was offered 12 years ago. That Billy Wright copy initially sold as a 7.0 for $83,650 in February 2012. Then it sold for $65,725 in November of the same year. Somehow, I don't think that was the flip that they were planning on. That's tough. You sell a pedigree copy, you know, 9 months after you buy it. People are going to notice and they're going to wonder what happened to the book, why you didn't like it that much. I don't know. There must have been conversation about that on the forum. I haven't looked because when I look on the forum for something, I end up like spending like 3 hours talking about something random, and I'm not working on YouTube videos. So, and I have other things to do with my life. So it's either I make YouTube videos or I go on the forum to research something random. And I do go on the forum if it's something legit. If you're on the CGC forums, you will see me asking questions that end up on videos. So I am there, but I don't go on as much as I used to in terms of just like being on a message board because it just sucks me in. So, and there's some people that I've known for like 20 years. So it's like, I don't know. You fall into these patterns pretty easily. So I don't know. Maybe I'll quit my job and I'll just be on the forum all day. Not going to do that, but I could. It'd be fun. Some of you don't even, you're not on the CGC forum, or you're just like, think it's this like hive of scum and villainy. And here I am talking about it like you're all there all the time. Sorry. I'll make it up to you with, how about this? Detective Comics. Oh, hey, scrolling. Detective Comics number 31, CGC 4.0, off-white pages. Once again, so this is not the most beautiful 4.0. I'm not a fan of the spine, which looks like it was kind of like chipped at with an axe. And the shadows in the book are not great either. But it's a Detective 31. It's one of the coolest books on the planet. And who cares? So there we go. Here we go. It's one of my favorite books in the whole world. Is this the first time I've talked about Fantastic Four 48 on the channel? It may be. Okay, Fantastic Four number 48, CGC 9.8, white pages. So this book, not this particular book, but Fantastic Four 48 in 9.8 has had an interesting journey since 2021. At that point, a 9.8 hadn't sold, at least in GPA, it could have been a Comic Link, since 2018. So when it broke 108,000 in June of 2021, it was a surprise, but also juiced by like real pent-up demand for a 9.8 copy of one of the best books in the hobby. Especially from that period, kind of mid-60s. It's like, you can't beat this book. After that, copies sold for 81,000, 93,000 in 2023, and then 96,000 in January of 2024. So, so far so good. The first copy kind of popped, but then we had copies that were selling in a ballpark. If you had resold the 108, yeah, you'd lost money, but you didn't like take an entire, you didn't take a bath and then a shower and then another bath. It went down, but that's what you expect to have happen when a book in a grade comes out after a long time without one. The first one pops and the rest of them don't do as well. But, okay, so you're thinking, oh, it weathered the post-COVID bubble and it still got legs. And then two sales happened this year, 63,000 in April and $66,006 in March. It's really pretty confusing, and I'm not sure what to make of it. So the results for this copy might help settle the debate. Are those $60,000, it's like new equilibrium, and we had four buyers above $80,000 who are all out of the market now? I don't know. This particular copy is none of those. It's a freshly graded book, really gorgeous copy, wonderful preservation, and so that the seller is happy either way. They definitely didn't spend anywhere near what this book is going to get, so which is cool for them at least. All right. Luke Cage. I never commented on the plainly ridiculous idea that a copy of Hero for Hire #1 has sold for more than $100,000. I love the character. Like, I use Sweet Christmas in regular, like even professional situations, and I'm a fan of that book. This book. That said, it's a Marvel #1 from 1972. There are 13 9/8s, dozens of 9/6s ready to be optimized, and quite possibly an unopened case or two out there. Jumping from $16,250 in 2020 to $102,000 in 2022 is insane. Whatever way you try to frame it. And remember, I'm a cheerleader for comics, so if you lose me, you're in trouble. And you might be in trouble with this one. I don't know. The last one sold for $64,000, which is still nuts, but it's a lot closer to sanity than $102,000. Now, of course, in 15 years, every book will sell for $100,000. At least this one will, whatever. But like right now, that number seems nuts to me. So there you have it. But at least this copy is gorgeous, because there are problems with quality production on Marvels and DCs in the 70s, and this one is pretty spot on. It's slightly askew, maybe slightly a hair's breadth. Other than that, it is perfectly centered, perfectly square, perfectly black. The yellows pop, the blue pops. Great cover, great book. Okay, more fun comics number 73, CGC 8.0, Off-White White. Back with the Time Machine. First Aquaman, first Green Arrow, and first Speedy. I'm bursting into the DC offices and say, put those characters on the cover. Instead, we've got like this random Dr. Fate image and no reference at all to the new characters on the cover. This is still an undervalued book, right? Like a tough book from 1941 featuring the first appearance of two major DC characters. Aquaman made like $1 billion, right? Like that's a pretty big deal. It has to be worth more than this book is sold for. We'll see where this one ends up. If it trends with the previous sales, it should hit $200,000 to $300,000. We'll see. Maybe the church copy will resurface to unlock the comic's full value. That would be fun. I mean, that would be fun. I'm not just not joking. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see any new church copies, like any of them just showing up out of the blue is remarkable. Like the Suspense 3. We didn't know there was a Suspense 3. We didn't know that it existed. And like the people that know this stuff didn't know it existed. And it showed up and it was like the Church Suspense 3. It's like, where did this thing come from? That was fascinating. Quite fun. Quite fun. See, exactly. Look at what I was talking about. Okay, I've talked about this book a few times. Showcase number 17, Adventures on Otherworld. First, Adam Strange. CGC 9.2. 1 of 1, highest graded. I've talked about it. I'm super excited to see where it ends up. Newly graded, highest graded copy of this book. Love Showcase. Love Adam Strange. Love 1958 DCs. Remember, this is years before Fantastic Four #1. Years. 616. Okay, 61. This is from 58. Tough. Hulk is 4 years past this. Hulk #1, which is like Marvel collectors are like, it's so crazy. It might be, but it's not as crazy as some of these early DCs. Oh, look what we've got now. TMNT #1, signed copy. Let's see what this one's at. TMNT #1, signed copy. Just going to refresh to see what the current $38,000. Okay. This is Christine Farrell's copy, by the way. Not just DC's. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, she was a big collector, right? She was a major comic collector, owned a shop, etc. So, as you viewers of the channel will know, the last two of these sold for $87,000 exactly. Will this one sell for $87,000 as well? I don't know. But it is the price of the last two of this book in the last two Heritage signature auctions. So, but Christine Farrell copy. So that's cool. I actually have to go through. It's a good idea to kind of like search on, because you can search on Christine Farrell and look at some of the other books, because there are DC books that are coming up in the weekly auctions, but there are obviously other books as well. So it'd be interesting to check out. Anyway, let's see. Oh God, Archie 1. So this is a weird one. This is books I've been a proponent of over the years. Pep 22, not so much Archie 1. So Pep 22, big time booster of Pep 22. Big time booster of Wonder Woman #1, All Star #8. Yeah, a few others, but I mean those I've talked about a lot over the years. And I never talked about Archie #1 as much. Um, the original art to this exists, by the way. You can find out where it is on the internet. Um, yeah, crazy. Um, anyway, Archie #1, CGC 3.0, Off White. Uh, in this grade, this book has been like super flat over the past 10 years. So it sold for $20,000 in 2014, 20,315, and has bounced between 31,625 in the high for the grade in 2022 and 16,766 in 2024, with 9 other sales between 19,200 and 29,388 over the last 10 years. That's surprising to me, as I've always loved this book, and I guess I just wasn't paying enough attention to lower grade copies to notice this kind of flat or maybe potentially declining pattern. So I don't know. We'll see where this one goes. It's already at 10,000, so it should bust through that 16,766 pretty soon. That's 10,500 current bid, so it's actually 12,600 with buyer's premium. So, uh, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, here we go. This is a book we all love. I love. Batman #1, CGC 1.5, Off White to White. This is a crusty, low grade, tape stained, whatever copy of one of the best books in the hobby, and I wish I was in the position to buy it. This one is going to have a lot of competition, however, so maybe not, but uh, I love it. And I've talked about that before. Lower grade copies bring in a large pool of bidders, and even at $50,000 to $75,000, which actually that was my script. This is already at over $78,000 with buyer's premium, which is not bad. So even at the kind of $78,000 level, it'll have a large bidder base as any copy of Batman #1 can have. So a lot of bidders, even people that can afford a more expensive one, and then anybody whose maximum is maybe $100,000 would be in on this copy. So cool. The other people like it, not just me. Um, okay, here's another one. I mean, the auction is actually full of books that I would be interested in if I was like a fully formed comic collector right now and not just like a bench warmer on YouTube. I'll get there eventually, but it is what it is. It's like, um, there are other activities that I do when I'm buying comics, and one of them is selling, and so I've been getting back into selling, but not at a full bore rate quite yet. So we'll get there, and then I'll start buying stuff, and I'll be able to show things off, and I'll suspiciously not mention certain copies in my previews, so that I don't get a bunch of competition on books that I love. That's how you can tell I'm not going to be bidding on this Pep Comics #1, CGC 1.0. Um, but this book is always super hard, right? There aren't many copies at all, and even at the top level, the highest grade is an 8.5, formerly the 8.0, which sold for $252,000 in 2017. And the church copy is kind of looming over everything. So if you're in the market for one, this 1.0 is looking pretty good, I would think. I think this might be the copy you'd want to get. So, and again, Christmas is coming up. I accept gifts, so you can buy it for me, and I'll show you. I'll shout you out on the channel. How about that? No, it's all good. I'll get there. I'll get there. I'll get back. It's hard, once you get out of it, it's like actively buying, and then you have to like think about actively buying again. It's like, oh my God, I gotta do stuff. Um, don't mind me. Superman #1, CGC 1.0, brittle pages. Okay, so the trend of ugly books versus books that I wish I was in the position to buy, they just like got into their final form. It just like butted heads right here with this book. It's an ugly copy of Superman #1. I can't even describe some of the things that's happened to this book. And the grader's notes must be hilarious, actually. Let me just pull those up real quick. Completely split first wrap, completely split cover, entire spine missing of cover, large piece out of spine, moderate creasing to cover, multiple tape pull left front of cover, multiple tape stain whole book, multiple tear front cover, multiple tear full right of back cover, piece out of bottom right of front cover, small tape stain of interior back cover. So yeah, it's a mess, and if you can see the tape pulls are just so ugly. But it's a Superman #1. I love Superman #1. I mean, the only thing that would give me pause is brittle pages. But I also might look at, this is an opportunity because that will put some people off. This is the cheapest copy of Superman #1 that's you're ever going to find, really. And it'll be interesting to see what this one ends up. I didn't refresh the current bid. So it's currently at $31,200. We'll see. We'll see. This auction, by the way, I didn't even mention. It's November 2024 as I record this, November 7th. And the auction ends the 21st to the 24th of November in 2024. So now you know. I'll put it in the title so I don't look like a complete idiot. Here's one. So you will... I did not... So in the Collection Without Fear video, which is one of the earliest videos I did on the channel, I talked about my Daredevil 1 to 157 collection, CGC 9.4 and above, with like 2 exceptions. And, it was great. Sold it at Comic Connect. Had a bunch of fun putting the catalog together, like getting all the books together, looking at them, photographing them, sharing them, bringing them down to New York was great. In addition to that, I talked about how I had long runs of some of the other Daredevil Volume 2, a run of Daredevil 158 to 280 mostly. But I also had was a number of early Daredevil appearances in other series. So I had all of the appearances in Fantastic Four. I had, a bunch of like Marvel Team Up and Marvel 2-in-1s, a bunch of just random appearances. I would just, Spectacular Spider-Man 26, 27, and 28, of course. And just things like that. And so one of the books that I hadn't bought yet and was actually on my list, and if I had continued to collect that thematic, the Daredevil thematic collection, I would have wanted exactly this book, an Amazing Spider-Man number 16, CGC 9.4. It would have been my target exactly. So that's all. Let's just take a look at it. It's a handsome book. Really nice looking, nice preservation, and it is currently at, I just like to check on the prices, it's $2,000, $2,400. All right, so still working its way up there, but yeah, I never owned one. So here we've got New Mutants 87 Signature Series, Todd McFarlane signed, CGC 9.9. This book sold for $22.50 in November 2012. What's it worth today? McFarlane, by the way, who signed this, inked it. I wonder how many credits he has just as an inker. Kind of curious. Might take a look at that later. So, here's a book you knew I was going to talk about. Strange Tales number 110, White Mountain Pedigree. First Doctor Strange. Another book. Put Doctor Strange on the cover. Instead, we've got Paste Pot Pete. Graded in December of 2021. I wonder what would happen to this book if it were sent in for a reholder. Because I'd want to if I owned it, but I'd be concerned they'd see something from 23 years in one of the first-gen holders that might kind of force the book to be reevaluated. That's probably why it's still in that old holder. Because otherwise, get them out of those things. They're dangerous. So now we got some art now. Let's see. Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, Gobbledygook #1 cover, currently at $5,500. This sold in 2011 for around $5,700. If I remember correctly, that was a disappointment to me. It may have been a disappointment to the hobby as a whole. This time around, it's already past that total at 6,600 on November 7th, 2024. That includes buyer's premium. So, maybe it'll get to 10,000. I don't know. I looked on my site and I didn't actually comment on it there. So the conversations may have happened on the CGC forum, in which case I could look there. But as I mentioned, once I start doing that, I run into threads from 10 years ago and I get distracted by funny things. And it's bad. It's not bad. It's fun, but it's a time suck. Simon Bisley, Lobo's Greatest Hits Trade Paperback Collection, Original Cover Art, DC 1992. Do you remember when Lobo was cool? You don't? Well, trust me, he was cool for a while. I had a full box of Omega Men number 3 at one point. That is a plentiful book. Well, interesting. There are 3,244 9/8 of Omega Men number 3, first Lobo, in case you're wondering, out of about 9,500 copies submitted. There are no 9/9s and no 10s of Omega Men number 3. Someone, somewhere, is looking at every raw copy they can find, hoping to produce one. My guess is it's something to do with the production. It's kind of a cardstocky cover, and the spine flakes a little bit, and it's just weird. It's weird paper. I don't know. There's a lot of 9/8s though. You'd think there'd be 199. But compare that to like Wolverine Limited Series number 1, generally from the same time period, and another book I've seen boxes of. There have been 23,695 Wolverine number 1s, Limited Series number 1s graded, and there are 39 9/9s and 4 10s. Anyway, love Simon Bisley. I think it's the first mention of Simon Bisley on the channel. I love this cover, and I remember when this series came out. This collection came out. It was pretty cool, and like I said, it was when Lobo was hot. Lobo was like the stuff. Here we go. So there were, let's just see what this is at right now. There were several Miller pages I could have mentioned in this auction from like different series. I chose this one, which is actually as much Klaus Johnson as it is Miller, because, in between 181 and 190, Miller was doing layouts and Janson was doing much more of the finished work. He wasn't just inking; he was like actually drawing, which you can see in the faces and some of the details. There were much more Klaus Janson. But that said, this one is super dramatic. I love the image of Black Widow, and then the sequence at the right with the multiple camera angles, and it's a really important plot point, because Matt Daredevil realizes that Elektra is alive, and his ham-handed mystical praying over her somehow brought her back to life. So dramatic page, really memorable, leads into 191, which is another classic from the run. And so I shared this one. Let's see. So Paul Pope, Batman number 50 variant cover, original art. I just love the work that Paul Pope, who's like kind of an indie darling, whatever. He came in and started doing work for DC. I love the work he did on Batman. So there's that. Just wanted to share it. Okay, here's a big one. This is Rob Liefeld, New Mutants 98, first Deadpool story page 14, original art, New Mutants 98. Here's this is the best possible example of a comic or piece of art that I personally don't care about at all, but like really appreciate, and just am happy to share it with you, right? So many people are going to go crazy for this book. I mean, this art. The first story page featuring Deadpool is not my cup of tea at all. I never got into Deadpool at all, and I was only briefly a Liefeld fan, albeit during this time period. But that said, this fresh-to-market page is clearly a lot of people's grail. It's already at $396,000 with buyer's premium as of this recording, and I wouldn't be surprised if it doubles or even triples that by the end of the auction. This is like a pretty epic auction, and is one of the most interesting lots in this entire Heritage Signature auction for me. It's crazy. So, speaking of stuff I love, John Byrne, Terry Austin, X-Men 127, story page 9, original art. How have I never mentioned or featured any Burn X-Men content on this channel? Either like a mint, CGC copy or art, because there's always art for sale. Um, Here's a page with 1,000,000 characters from the classic Proteus storyline. So, love this one. And it's already at $105,000 with buyer's premium. So, a couple weeks ago on that one, too. So, and last, but I mean, certainly not least, John Romita Sr., Wolverine character concept art, 1974. So I said, the Liefeld New Mutants 98, I don't care. It doesn't really float my boat. This one I care about. This is a very cool piece of comic book history. I, like everyone that read comics in the 80s, love Wolverine. I love Hulk 180 to 182. And I'm also a giant comics history nerd. So, and also actually John Romita. I love John Romita. So what's not to love? This one is difficult to value, I guess, but it'll be fun to see it play out. It could go crazy and sell for like $100 million, $1 billion. Well, at least seven figures, I think. But maybe, who knows? We'll see. It's really going to be interesting to see, because this is a unique piece that there's only one of, and it's just like everything about it is historic and fantastic, and it's certainly a conversation starter. So, that said, I'm throwing out huge numbers. It's only at $126,000 as of this recording, so we'll see where it goes. Certainly one to watch, though. And with that, I'm going to end this particular preview. This is a better auction than I thought. And, I didn't even, what I should have done at first, but I got the catalog today. I should have gone through the catalog. Maybe I'll go through the catalog, and if there's anything I missed, I'll add it in a short. Like I said, it's better than I thought it was at an initial kind of first. I looked at the featured listings, and I was like, oh, this is kind of boring. But then, I started to dig in. There's a lot of really cool stuff, to look at and watch and share. So there you go. Thanks if you made it this far. Please, like and subscribe, share with your friends, and check back next week for some new content. I think I'm going to finish up the world record comic book progression list. That would be out maybe Friday next week, Thursday or Friday next week. I'm on the road for a couple of days and won't be able to record until then. And then, we'll keep doing it. We'll keep having some fun talking about comics. Thanks. Bye.